What do I do with
His
my
man
hands?
is over gasp. Just hold them like this.
Yeah. Welcome
Bleeding.
to the community. Welcome. Okay, you're recording?
Yeah, I'm recording.
All right, awesome. Introduction to Film and Social Psychology. Those are the episodes. Okay. Okay. Pop, pop.
Pop, pop.
Hello and welcome to the Very TV Rewatch of Community. My name is Jonathan Dornbush, and alongside me is...
Pop, pop. I'm Yami. Hi.
Hi, Yami. We introduced ourselves this time, so we're off to a better start.
Yeah. Already better.
Yeah. So welcome. We are going to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of Season 1 of Community, which are Introduction to Film and Social Psychology. I can't speak. Yeah. So if you have not seen either of these episodes, stop what you're doing, go watch them, come back, listen to all of our corny jokes about their corny jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with Introduction to Film, and one thing I wanted to pick off of what you said last week about how these initial episodes kind of are pairing Jeff with a different member of each group.
Yeah.
This one for me was definitely Jeff with Abed.
For sure.
Obviously Britta's involved, but so it's sort of about one of the main thrusts besides the Jeff and Britta romance is Abed wants to join a film class, but his father won't let him, so Britta gives him the money to start the class, but he then starts documenting them spending more money, getting better equipment, and sort of films them awkwardly just throughout their lives to make this very interesting documentary. What did you think of the episode?
I liked it a lot. It was clear to me that this is the start of Community as we know it, because like there was that whole what made me think, oh, this was Community before Community, like was the video that Abed made. Like that was so weird. It was so Abed of him, and I was like, oh, okay, this is where the show started like finding itself at this point.
And I think it's almost too weird that like the video itself is it's weirder than it is funny.
I wish that Abed. This is something that I've wished for the whole series. I wish that he was an actually good filmmaker.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot of hints that he's not actually really good.
Yeah, which is great. One thing I did notice at the beginning, because there is a which is unfortunately timely, but there's a big Robin Williams thread in the episode.
Yes.
And in the beginning, Abed mentions that he doesn't like Robin Williams, which is surprising to me, but I could also, I guess, understand from certain film snobs.
I was like, how?
It's interesting, but I kind of actually get it, because he might just be too broad for some people, but we love him, and obviously the episode likes him because the professor of
Society.
Yeah, the professor of the week that's introduced, which is kind of how the show operates in the beginning, is very much like instead of case of the week, like a mystery show, it's a professor of the week. This is Professor Whitman, played by John Michael Higgins, who is essentially Robin Williams and Dead Poets Society pushed to the extreme. He has them all stand up on their desks. Of course, one of those desks breaks, which is a good bit.
Which actually, apparently, the girl... fun fact, because I watched the commentaries, by the way, everybody listening. I watched the commentaries because I'm a nerd. The girl who is a stunt double, she's a stunt woman, she, like, apparently started bleeding.
Oh, God.
Donald Glover says that when he asked, like, if she was okay, she just looked at him and was like, yeah. This is my job.
This is what I live for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why that is a total tangent, but that's why like stunt doubles do exist, because a lot of stars do like to do their own stunts, but like it's dangerous.
Exactly.
Like, stunt doubles are used to the danger. Yeah, stunt doubles like prepare for that. So
I loved this episode when I started watching this show. Wait, no, it's not. Well, I'll just keep going anyway. It's the next episode that I'm thinking about. But anyway, when I first started watching this show. This episode got me because of Dead Poets Society. I was totally that type of person. I was the seize the day, carpe diem. I still kind of am, obviously. But this was such a like making fun of me type of thing. And I loved it. It was like the whole Jeff trying to get out of this and finding that he can't always just get out of things by being a smartass. Like sometimes he needs to be a genuine person to actually do well in life. It's great.
Yeah, which is there's a great joke with that when he tries to really fool the professor by running through the park flying a kite and then like talks to the girls jumping rope, and the professor's like, these strangely age inappropriate girls.
Yeah.
And then he pays them off because they're hired actors. But yeah, I just watched Dead Post Society like a week ago, so it's funny to just see sort of like the extremes that they take him.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you finally watched it. I thought of you while watching the episode because I was like, oh, he's finally gonna get this. Like,
yeah. Like I knew,
yeah, you got it,
but I had never actually seen Dead Post Society. But yeah, so it's funny to just see sort of how funny it was, and just other things about Robin Williams, like Abed mentions that in the beginning. Troy mentions Aladdin in the beginning also.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of Robin Williams in this episode.
A lot. It's kind of I never noticed it. Like the first time watching it.
It's never outwardly addressed, and so it's almost like the show, again, these early episodes are very much the show getting into what the show is going to become. And so this seems like an early version of them trying to reappropriate something, but maybe not going perfectly with it, but doing it well in some cases and some cases not. Other thing that I saw was just Abed's dad references Jeff as Seacrest for the second time on the show.
Yeah,
this is the second Seacrest reference. Also, this won't mean as much to you, but Badger from Breaking Bad, the guy who gets the lattes, is that actor.
Okay, yeah, that didn't mean anything to me. In the commentary, they talked about how this guy actually, that's his actual voice because he would scream while improvising. So.
Yeah, he that's how he sounds on Breaking Bad as well, and he also is on, I believe, Mom on CBS now.
Oh, cool.
I forget the actor's name, but yeah, it was just funny to see him pop up. But yeah, we also get sort of the Abed, like as you were saying, sort of with his filmmaker thing, but it's also Abed using people to like manipulate them to the emotional end of the show.
Like, truthfully, yeah, like it's almost like we start seeing how he wants everything to be a sitcom, so he's basically being a manipulative asshole, a little puppet master with everybody in the group.
Yeah, like if there was a god of the community world, it is Abed, and this is the first time we see him sort of like stretch his powers, which I thought was really funny. And yeah, like but obviously you also get to see the darker side of Abed, where he has like these parental issues at home, using Jeff and Britta as his surrogate parents.
Yeah, Donald Glover, because he was in the commentary for this one, he was like, that was a lot. That we did, like, after they showed the video that Abed made, wow, that was a lot to learn about a character, like, in one scene.
Yeah, you kind of get
all of this.
You get the whole dark side of, like, his family life, about how his parents are, like, split, how they don't, like, his father doesn't, like, show him affection, how his mother just abandoned them in his mind, like, all these things.
We really jumped right into Abed right from the beginning of Community. We saw this in the first 2 episodes. We got a really clear view of what he is. Who he is, and then we get like his backstory as well in this episode. So Community starts off really Abed heavy. Yeah.
And they're still trying to reconcile who the character actually is, but they're getting there, which is nice.
Yeah, this was my like lesser favorite of the 2 that we watched actually.
Yeah, no, mine as well. I think it's less funny than it is like indicative of where the show will be when it's at its funniest.
And like as we were saying last time, we're still seeing this whole rom-com aspect of Jeff and Britta that no longer exists in the show. That clearly never worked out because in the commentaries themselves, I actually wrote a note about this because I wanted to talk about it. Apparently, Jeff and Britta focus group tested, whatever it's called, focus grouped. They were better off as friends to people, basically.
Which I agree with. I don't like really care about them as a couple. They're just a couple because a show requires the 2 leads to be a couple. And
that Shirley makes a joke about that. I think it's later on in the season though. She makes a joke about how it's like, oh, 2 white young students just seem right together. Like
I think that's actually in the next episode.
There you
go. Where she's like, it just seemed natural.
It just seemed right. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I never, and that's what made me love Community from the beginning. Right now, what we are watching, I never once cared if Jeff and Britta got together.
No,
and that's huge for me because I always care when like the OTP get together. But this time I was like, oh, that's nice. I don't care though. They're funny all on their own.
Yeah, I like just seeing them interact as people.
Exactly.
But yeah, obviously there is that kiss with them at the end, which Jeff feels like his real kiss, but obviously it's not for
Britta. But Britta don't give a fuck.
What I love most about this scene is like the teacher comes over and he's like, that is clearly a real like kiss you're taking today, and then he just runs off and starts climbing a tree. and it's the actual actor who's just like in the background as Jeff is kind of like, oh crap, but I'm just like staring at this teacher in like the very corner of the screen, and he's just like really getting up there. That was like
that's fucking great. I never noticed that before. That's hilarious.
It's really funny. The show, I think, was starting to get into, and we'll talk about this as we go into the second show, but they were starting to get into the, like, using the background as a source for comedy.
Definitely, yeah.
Which I don't want to spoil what comes up as, like, the best one. I think it's in the second season, but we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll get to that, like, 2 years from now. And then, of course, it ends with the crumping tag. I would just be remiss not to mention the tags.
One of my favorite tags.
These early tags are really great, and they kind of it's clearly the basis of when Troy and Abed were becoming
best friends. Yeah. Troy and Abed crumping, that took apparently hours, and they say they were sore as shit by the end of that.
I feel like, how could that take hours? They just had to act like idiots for 5 minutes.
It was pretty funny because Danny Pudi was talking about it. He was like, yeah, you know, and the thing about crumping is that it's never the same twice. Like, that made me crack up.
The crumping expert that is Danny Pudi.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's definitely, what I love is also just the physicality of that, because he's a pretty large guy. Like, he's tall and gangly.
He's like a Slenderman. He's
like a wavy, wacky, inflatable arm-filling tube man.
Yeah, exactly.
But also Jeff, like, they're both pretty tall guys, and so, like, their limbs are just going all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, just right now, it reminded me, don't you feel kind of, like, a hint of sadness watching these old episodes? Because I'm like, oh, Troy. Troy was so important to the show. I felt
yeah, he is integral. We won't get to the dark times until later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, his integration into the group is, wow, that was, nope, let's backtrack, wrong use of words. He is integral to the group.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. We're just going to skate by that. Just move on by. Oh, God. He is so integral to the main build. Like, not just the whole group, but just with Troy and Abed as well. It's just such a facet of that show. But yeah, was there anything else about that show before you want to move on to?
The episode?
Yeah.
No, not really. I just loved it because it was such a making fun of. I watched it in college, right? My university. I think it was like sophomore year. I got into Community, and who I was in high school. This was perfectly parodying it. And the teacher in high school that I had that was like that. It was just so perfect for me, and I loved it. That episode.
Yeah. It really gets at the Carpe Diem Dead Poet Society thing.
Yeah.
Without them actually making a parody of Dead Poet Society.
Exactly.
Because it's not like the whole group goes off into the caves near Greendale and reads poetry together. But, yeah, I think other than that, we'll segue into social psychology, which is, for me, the Jeff and Shirley episode at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, which, really quick, you noticed in these first episodes how I made the hypothesis that, not hypothesis, I'm pretty sure Dan Harmon has confirmed this, that he just basically wanted to make a Jeff with one character each episode. You notice every single episode is Jeff and Britta no matter what, though. So it's kind of like pushing further that he really wanted these two to be an OTP. But it never really worked out. Like, Jeff and Britta they're central in every episode.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm forgetting of what's coming up, but I don't feel like there is a Jeff and Britta episode because the show at the beginning was Jeff and Britta.
The pilot, yeah.
Yeah. Certainly the pilot, but at least in these future ones. I think it was more probably just like a mandate, I would assume, from NBC.
Mm-hmm. Probably. They're like, these two blonde guys, guy and girl, get together.
Well, yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if the network notes are like, they're the leads. There should be a will there, won't they? So he just kind of pushed that.
Yeah. What would you think of Jeff and Shirley's little shit talking?
So yeah, they don't put Jeff and Shirley together too often in the show, but when they do, it's some of my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
I think the two of them together are great because you see the darker side of Shirley, which you do every now and then.
I fucking love it when Shirley gets evil. It's great.
Yeah, when she just gets to be mean, because like Shirley is very much, we don't see it as much at the beginning, but she very much becomes like the religious person in the group.
Yeah.
And so just seeing her also be this horrible person behind people's backs is kind of hilarious. And Yvette Nicole Brown plays it so character. Well.
Yeah, it's true to the character, too, because it would totally make sense that this woman who is very religious would be very judgmental.
Oh, yeah.
Other people.
We apologize to all our religious listeners.
Not everybody.
But yeah, the one thing I want to point out before we get into the actual episode, so Chang is so creepy with Annie in the beginning.
He truly is.
He just gets right up into her face and like kisses her on the forehead, and I'm like, she can be fired. That is not allowed.
That is not okay. Actually, Dan Harmon talked about this in the commentary, that he had sort of this idea of Annie and how she is the young one of the group. She's the little girl. She is innocent. And every time something... Like, he even cut out a scene with John Oliver in this episode where John Oliver's character would just stare at her kind of, like, suggestively.
Yeah.
And he cut that out because he was like, no. Annie cannot be seen this way. She is going to be seen a certain way, and it's going to stick to that.
Yeah, I think, like, the show, while, like, it doesn't hide the fact that, like, look, Alison Brie is attractive.
Yeah, we're like, oh, she's pretty. Put her in slow motion.
But it also doesn't hide the fact that, like, Annie is a very, like, smart and independent and, like, strong character. Like, and obviously she takes time to get there, like, fully, but they don't shy away from... They don't infantilize her for the sake of, like, having the attractive female character.
Exactly, and I love that about Dan Harmon, that he doesn't want it to be that she's attractive. He wanted to focus on her trying to do this psychology experiment, trying to get to the bottom of this, trying to be a good student. They're focusing on that rather than, oh, Alison Brie's hot, so let's put John Oliver staring at her as she walks away type of thing.
Yeah, but speaking of John Oliver, he's back in this episode with Professor Ian Duncan running a psych sort of experiment.
This is probably one of my favorite episodes in the first season, by the way.
Yeah, I think this is when this is probably where my biggest laugh of Community happened. First big laugh. It's just probably the same moment. But so in the psychology experiment, they put a bunch of people in a room and they just keep telling them 5 more minutes before the experiment actually starts, but that is the experiment. Chang is the first one to break, and he immediately goes crazy.
Yeah, like almost instantly.
Just like from the first moment he's gone. But it empties out and it empties out and it empties out, and then the point is that it gets to Troy and Abed are the last two. And then Troy, Annie walks in, it's like 5 more minutes. She walks back out.
The best.
Troy just starts shaking. It's Donald Glover at his finest. He starts shaking.
The best performance.
And he just yells and he's like, "What? No, the Soul Train Awards.
Soul Train Awards were on tonight."
And then he starts dragging himself on the ground.
That is the funniest shit in the world. And by the way, all of that was improvised completely.
I'm not surprised.
All it said in the script was Troy has a meltdown, and then he took it to the funniest freaking bit of the first season when he crawls out of the room like that.
His legs are limp, and he's just moving himself by his arms, like, forward. And
which, by the way, one time I dropped one of my newborn, like, puppies because my dog had puppies.
I thought you were going to say baby. I was like,
dear Lord.
I was like, why are you still out of jail?
No, I care a lot. I care about puppies, not newborn babies. The puppy, like, started crawling the exact same way. So it kind of made that moment not scary for me. Like, I was like, oh no! And then she started doing it, and I was like,
As long as it reminds you of a sitcom, it's fine.
Exactly. No, but she's fine, by the way. Listeners, she's fine. She's
Good.
Fine.
Yeah, so the Soul Train Awards bit is great.
So good.
Fun thing about in the background, because the show does a really good thing of building out the world of Greendale and having secondary characters play a part as the show goes on.
Yeah.
Garrett, he's not mentioned by name, but the sort of the heavier guy with glasses is he's in the experiment.
Crisis alert!
Yeah. He's in there. He doesn't really say anything, but he's in there for a moment, so I just like that they use, like, the same recurring background actors to actually become characters.
Definitely. I love that there are things... I think that gets actually talked about at one point. There were, like, 2 of the background students are like, is it going to be another week about them again? Like,
yeah, I think I know.
Is it all going to be about them?
I remember that joke, yeah.
But speaking of that, Community, by the way, listeners and you, JD, pay attention to the background, because I think Community has one of the best, like, background set designers of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Everything in each scene is done so well to fit the scene. That
you see the Luis Guzman statue out in the courtyard without it being referred to as such, but it is.
I know, yeah. I remember watching the first episode, which might be bad for normal TV watchers to just suddenly see a statue of Luis Guzman and be like, what the hell?
And just let it go by unmentioned.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I thought it was the funniest shit in the world. So.
Yeah. That was great. And also just speaking about how they use the sort of people in the background. There's one point where, because obviously Jeff and Shirley are the main sort of twosome and just figuring out their relationship.
Yeah.
Pierce gets these ear binoculars so that he can hear people far away. There's a bit where Jeff and Shirley are walking down just like the walkway that they do, and he is in the background just kind of walking around, and you see it in his ear, but it never like focuses in on him or never like points it out that he is actually there, and it's just like this great bit of just Pierce walking in the background listening.
Super great, yeah.
Which is why he thinks they're talking about him. But yeah.
The experiment, back to the experiment really quick, because that was actually my favorite part of this episode. Yeah. That Troy has a meltdown. He's one of the last ones to leave. And then it's just Troy. He's the second last one to leave. Yeah, it's just Abed, It's just Abed that's left, and it's just like the cutest thing when he reveals to Annie, like, and he's like, "Why didn't you leave?" And he's like, "Because you were my friend and you told me to stay," or whatever. And I was like, "Oh my god, I love Abed so much." Like this scene solidified my love for Abed.
You get the sense of Abed's like trust in them as people.
Yeah, he's a loyal guy. He's just a loyal friend. And then like Annie comes around and is like, "Oh, she's back." Which, by the way, there was a whole longer scene that was deleted. In the scene with her giving Abed a gift. Duncan is supposed to come back and talk to Annie about how he's like, "Oh, I want you to join my team. Yeah, I need you to like finish this experiment with me. Come on, let's go. Like we'll work on it right now." And then Annie's like, "No, actually, I think I'm gonna stay with my friend." And then she just like goes back to Abed. There was like that whole longer scene that got cut.
I can see why it would get cut, but yeah, it sort of goes back to them.
Yeah, but it's cute. It's cute to know that
I think the only other big thing about the episode for me was obviously the introduction of Vaughn, Britta's sort of boyfriend guy she's seeing.
Yeah, that whole thing that was just introduced to further the rom-com-y aspect.
Yeah. Vaughn, he's never like my favorite addition, not through the fault of the actor. I just don't think it really adds much to the show.
Yeah, I didn't think he was that funny either. Not the actor, but the actual character. I didn't think it was that.
He's
like,
just sort of
small nipples. I don't know.
Yeah, it's more funny like Jeff and Shirley's reaction to the fact that he has very small nipples, and like I do find it funny that he's always like shirtless, or still he's just like whatever.
He's always playing hacky sack. He has no worries.
Which I will now recreate live on the show. But no, he's gonna come back up. Spoilers for listeners. But yeah, as an introduction, he's just sort of there. It's more for the Britta Jeff plotline sort of thing. But yeah,
this is when Dan Harmon talked about specifically why it doesn't become a thing for later seasons, why Jeff and Britta stop, because he realized he was watching the scenes where like Jeff is like leaning against a vending machine all sad because how could she be making out with a guy on the grass, and he was like, "Oh, this is becoming like The Office. This is just Jim and Pam. There's another thing like that," and he didn't like that, and even focus groups thought that they were better off as friends, so it finally just came to a halt.
Steve Holt.
To a Steve Holt.
Yes. But I do think in this episode it's clearly sort of running its course. I think they're like just kind of pushing it along, but the best parts of the show are the experiment.
It's that it almost feels like everything that happens with Britta at this point doesn't matter because she changes so much.
Yeah, which people who are just watching the show for the first time won't realize, but yeah.
Yeah, you guys you'll see it because you're watching it along. Britta, like Dan Harmon talked about this again. I'm sorry, I keep sounding like a broken record, but I thought the commentaries were really interesting with these two. That apparently he wanted to basically have these like two completely opposite female leads. Like Annie is one type of girl that you would fall in love with, and Britta is the other type of girl that you would fall in love with. Like, the completely different reasons to fall for a girl type of thing. And he described Britta as, like, his exes. So, it just goes to show that, like, there must have been some, like, influence there to make Britta start making out with a random guy on a fucking grass.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I think also you sort of see the machinations of this being a traditional show, in the fact that song starts playing at the end is like the wrap up for the show, which is very un-Community. I love the song. It is How You Like Me Now by what is their name? They How You Like Me Now. Yeah. The guys who do that song, it's why can't I think? Is that the Black Keys? No.
No.
No, it is this is gonna kill me because I like them.
I'm gonna look it up. So.
How You Like Me Now. They also, this is the only reason I brought it up, they do the theme song for Borderlands 2.
Oh!
Short Change Hero. The Heavy, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a really good song, but it feels out of place in the show.
It goes to show that Community had a really good soundtrack back in the day.
Exactly. Both Ludwig, I forget how to pronounce his last name. So
Ludwig something?
Gronasons. He's gonna hate me.
Gronasons.
Please forgive me. His music is great for the show, and yeah, they picked really good licensed songs. It didn't fit the show, what the show was.
It did not, because Community isn't hip, and it shouldn't be trying to be hip. And I think with all these rom-com things that Jeff and Britta are going through, it should stop it.
Yeah. And it soon will.
Yay.
But yeah, anything else you wanted to say about those two shows before we wrap up?
No, that's really all that I got. I miss Donald Glover. He's so cute. Danny Pudi is awesome. Abed's the best. That's it.
That's it? All right, great. That'll be how we wrap up every week. It's just like, I miss Donald Glover.
I miss Donald Glover.
But yeah, so that is...
He's so freaking funny in the commentaries, by the way. If you get the chance, listen to the commentaries. Listeners.
Yeah, I've always meant to also.
Yeah, have you never?
I have for season 2. Season 1.
Oh my God, I'm such a better fan than you.
Of course, clearly.
Donald Glover is hot.
As you can tell from the commentaries.
I just have a crush on him. He's so funny.
But yes, that is Introduction to Film and Social Psychology. I can't speak. Both directed by Anthony Russo, one of the Russo brothers of Captain America.
Who wrote them?
They were written. Introduction to Film was written by Tim Hobart and John Pollock, and then Social Psychology, I will get it right one time, was written by Liz Kukowski.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, both strong efforts in the beginning, and I believe all three of them pop back up. Tim and John are writing partners, so they write together a lot.
Cool.
But yeah, all three of them pop up as the season goes on, so we'll have plenty more to talk about their scripts.
Awesome.
But yeah, so for next week we're going to watch Advanced Criminal Law and Football, Feminism, and You.
Ooh.
So we'll be talking about both of those. Those are episodes 5 and 6 of season 1 next week. So if you have any questions or comments about those episodes or about these 2 episodes, be sure to write to us at theverytvpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at theverytv to talk about Community. And you can also talk to Yami and myself on Twitter about Community or really any other TV. You can find me at JM Dornbush.
And I'm at idsanty, IDSANTY.
And of course, we thank you for listening. And if you are listening, hopefully you listen to the Very TV podcast. I also just said listen like 3 times in a row. Listen. I sound like Navi.
Yeah, right.
But hopefully you're listening to the main podcast. If you're not, please do. We like doing it. We also are starting a Hannibal rewatch this week, which basically the same show as Community, I think. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But you should watch and listen along to that if you are a fan of Hannibal or have been always meaning to check it out. It's a great show. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Be sure to write in. Follow us on iTunes, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. You can watch this episode on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you find us, where you're listening to us. We've really appreciated iTunes, Stitcher, Twitter, Tumblr, Friendster, Napster, whatever. But yeah, other than that, cool.
Cool.
Done.
All right.